Welcome to Code 0292, a youth show that focuses on young people's issues. My name is Lungile. In this week's episode, we will talk to the founder of a youth-led organization called KAHT, and his name is Tafara Mujikwa. Welcome, Tafara.
Thank you.
May you tell us all about KAHT and the full name of KAHT?
Okay. KAHT his full name is Kuziva Amai Huudzwa Trust. But first of all, let me say how glad I am to be invited here to share our thoughts and views with you. Kuziva Amai Huudzwa Trust is a professionally managed organization, and that is youth-led. The organization was incepted in the year 2018 in March, so to date it has been in existence for about a year and a month now. The organization focuses on the problems of young people in their struggle to obtain a life of justice and dignity. So reaching out to the most vulnerable and most disadvantaged young people is very central and key to KAHT's mission. Mm-hmm. The organization has participated in a number of activities that include giving out scholarships, that include, we are also in the later stages of opening an orphanage, and we have been going around with mentorship camps to make sure that we bring about all young people into the organization. Mm-hmm. But let me say that we also have a very clear focus on development. Mm-hmm. Reviving hope, offering resources and advocacy is very key to KAHT's mission. Mm-hmm. And all these things that I've said to you boil down to purposeful development. And the organization is very focused on bringing about change in our society and our communities.
All right.
And it is not just any change, but it is purposeful and transformational change. Mm-hmm. So now when I talk about uplifting and make sure that we develop our society, we must first define what is a society and what are the key components which make up a society. So it is our thinking as an organization that a society is made up of, number one, the people that live in it. And number two, it is made up of nature or the environment that surrounds those people. So when two people, it is our thinking, and we submit to you that when two people interact or when individuals interact among themselves, we call that social cohesion and politics. And when when people now engage nature or the environment that surrounds them, we now call that economics. And nature in its own, it is divided into certain components, which is number one, the land, which is air, and which is water. So when people engage nature, we call it that it is economics. When we engage nature at a small scale, it's microeconomics. And engaging it at a large scale, that is macroeconomics. Wonderful. So when a person engages nature on a small scale, let me say when he engages land, that is farming now. When he engages land also, that is mining. Good. So as an organization, our main aim is to uplift and improve our communities so that it becomes an equitable society for everyone. So we have to look at purposeful development, and we have to look at how we interact and engage ourselves as people. Mm-hmm. Right. So the question we must ask ourselves when we talk of a poor economy that is causing young people to live in a brunt and in poverty, we have to ask ourselves, are we engaging nature? And if so, how far are we engaging nature? So these two things of engagement between people and engagement with nature form the very key pillars that are the foundations of Kuziva Amai Huudzwa Trust is laid upon. Mm-hmm. So when we are talking about the engagement of people among themselves, we are offering an ideology which is called humanism. Mm-hmm. And it is strongly against the current system that is in place, which is called exploitation. We are living in a society, we are living in an environment where people view each other as a means to an end. We view each other as a stepping stones to get to a certain level and to get some certain properties. The thing is, we are putting money before people. We are putting properties before people. And as an organization, we are submitting to us that is wrong, and the nation and our communities will not develop with such kind of mentality. So what we are proposing the ideology of humanism. And we have been putting it in place, we have been exercising, but now we want it to cascade to all over Zimbabwe and in all communities.
Right.
And what do we mean by humanism?
Okay.
The theory or the ideology of humanism, it opposes that of exploitation, in that the humans and the people are an end themselves. It is people before money, it is people before property. The humans and the people amongst ourselves. This ideology brings about the theory that we are keepers of our brothers and sisters.
Okay.
So-
So if I can stop you right there. So from what I'm getting, KAHT focuses on promoting humanism.
Yes,
It focuses on making sure that people's needs are put first before everything else.
yes.
All right. So maybe you can tell me, why did you actually think of establishing an organization that needs to put people's needs first before anything else?
Okay. If I may tell you, Lungi, I grew up in an environment or in a community in the nation where I thought that anywhere outside my community, anywhere outside Zimbabwe is heavenly. And no one could blame me for that. I grew up in an economy where I would see young people not going to school, abusing drugs in the streets. I grew up seeing small girls and small boys, age around 10 to 12, selling tomatoes in the streets and not going to school. I grew up in an environment seeing very vibrant and ideological young people who had aspirations, but those things were crushed because there was no finance, and there was no even one person to put forward and to drive their dreams to make sure that they become a reality. And I grew up in an environment that I saw our mothers and fathers would spend time fasting and in mountains, praying to God, hoping for an intervention, a divine intervention, that one day their lives would just wake up differently. And those that possessed very little faith would spend days discussing politics, hoping that maybe there will come one politician who will just dramatically change their lives. And for the past 20 years that I've been in this world, that hasn't happened. So reflecting upon that, I then realized that there is need for us to bring about what I call purposeful development. That the local people and the young people will now participate in their development. We view the world, we pinpoint what we want as young people and as people. So we participate in our development to making sure that what we want comes into play and comes into reality. So we thought of coming up with an organization that is based on the theories and ideologies of humanism and purposeful development. And that is why we established this organization.
All right. So from what I'm getting right now is that your organization, you founded it upon reflecting as a young person.
Yes.
And because this organization is youth-led, it means that all the changes that you'd want to see happening in this country have to be started, or they have to be initiated by a young person.
Yes.
All right. So what kind of impact does a young person have in a community, or what kind of impact does KAHT have in the community, since you are a youth-led organization?
Okay, let me start with the question of what kind of impact does young people have. First of all, I remember the writings of one Chinua Achebe in his famous writings, one book called Things Fall Apart. He said that young people, we are the suckers that will grow when the old banana tree dies. And I'm glad to realize that Zimbabwe is now learning progressively, slow, one step at a time, that Zimbabwe is going to be built by young people. It is going to be built on the backs of young people who are properly educated, young people who are innovative and inventive, because the world is for those who invent and innovate. So we have come now to realize that, but there is a problem in our society, and there is a mindset that we have adopted due to the space we were born into and grown up in, which we're bred into. So as an organization, it is key and it is fundamental to realize that Zimbabwe is going to be built by young people. It is going to be built by the energy and courage of young people, but directed by the wisdom of the old. Because what an old person can see, what a young person cannot see when standing on the top of a mountain, the old people can see sitting under a tree. So as young people, we need to realize that the fate of this nation and the future of this nation is in our hands. But the wisdom to get to that point that we want, to Zimbabwe that we want, is going to come from those that have lived before us and those elders that are amongst us. As an organization, we believe that in development, Zimbabwe is going to develop, but there are fundamental issues that are affecting young people right now. No wonder why we have been so aggressive on the front of education, providing scholarships, mentorship camps, to make sure that we equip young people. And I must tell you, I'm very zealous and I'm a believer of that young people are going to partake at the table of Zimbabwe's development. But there are some fundamental issues that we need to deal with. And what are these issues that I'm talking about? Number one, it is a majority thinking that young people, that Zimbabweans, let me say blacks, have very high self-esteem. But as an organization, we submit to you. We dare submit without fear of contradiction. That no, as blacks and as young people, we do have high self-esteem. But what we lack is what we call racial esteem. Racial esteem is when we believe in our collective humanism, when we believe in a group as ourselves that we can develop. I dare you to go out and ask anyone, but where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? I'm sure that person will tell you that, go and ask any young person, and he will tell you that in the next 5 years, I will be driving an X5, I will be having this company and that company. But ask him, where do you see the agriculture of Zimbabwe in 5 years? What he's going to tell is Norway. But why? Because it's being spearheaded by blacks. It's being led by blacks. Farms are being managed by blacks, so they will go nowhere. But you are a black person and you say you are going to be having a company and a car in the next 5 years. What is wrong? We believe in ourselves. We have very high self-esteem, but very low racial esteem. As a group, we don't believe that a black person can do it. We believe that only me, I can do it, but the others cannot do it simply because they are blacks. Look around those black people in Zimbabwe that have managed to make it in life, that have managed to gather some riches, and the likes of Strive Masiwa and other millionaires. Anyone who has made it rich, it's either in Zimbabwe and in a black community that you have sacrificed someone or some children in rituals so that you make money, or you are a thief. There must be a way that you've cheated the system to have that money. It's not possible for a black person to be rich. That is what we think. When one is dressed as nice as you are, we say you are dressed like a white man. When you keep time, when you are punctual, we say you keep time like a white man. As if blacks, we are not capable of anything good. As if we are not capable of developing, we are not capable of fostering our own development. We don't believe in ourselves. And that is one thing which is wrong about our young people and our society. Though I believe, and I strongly believe, that it is going to be, the development of our country is going to be led by young people. But as an organization, we are here to panel beat. And there is need of a transplant, a mind transplant of some sort, to make sure that we change the way we think about ourselves, so that we will boost and raise that racial esteem, so that we start to believe that as a group we can do it, that blacks can do it. The moment I don't believe that a black person can be rich, the moment I don't believe that agriculture in Zimbabwe is going to boost because there are blacks in there and that, because the blacks are managing it, then we are not going to develop. We don't believe that as a group we are going to develop. But how are we going to improve our racial esteem? It is very simple. Let us begin to share the success stories of those that have lived before us and those that are living amongst us today. And as we know that there are blacks who have succeeded before, as we know that there are blacks who are succeeding right now and who are making it in life, but then we'll start to improve our belief. Then we'll start now to believe that yes, it is possible and it can be done. I remember one Thomas Sankara of Upper Volta, who overthrew the French government back then, and he became president at a very tender age. The people of Upper Volta, the blacks, were known to provide labor in the neighboring countries. But when he came to power, he said that, but why are we called Upper Volta? And he changed that name. He changed it to Burkina Faso, meaning the land of the upright man. And 4 years down the line, he was assassinated. And the most prizeful or the most valuable assets that he had were 4 bicycles and a small shanky house and $480 in his account. And he was the president. So this now, if we begin to share this kind of history, we then know that we can have leaders that are not corrupt. We have had black leaders that were not corrupt and that were able to foster development of their nations. And I remember one Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana saying that the development of saying that the freedom of Ghana means nothing as long as the rest of Africa is not yet free. But today, do we have people who say, my college degree means nothing, as long as there are still children out there who are not going to school? That my mansion means nothing, as long as they are still children who are sleeping under the stars. But no, we are living in a community where people are chasing their own riches, where honorable men are buying houses and cars they will never drive. They are buying houses they will never sleep in, while at least they are children. So as an organization, we are trying to remove that kind of mentality. We are trying to remove all those, to bring about humanism, to say, no, it matters not for you to have 2 mansions while at least their children sleeping outside, while at least their children not going to school. So for Zimbabwe to develop, young people are going to play a very critical role in the development of our nation and in the development of our communities. But there is a need to make sure that we enter a process of self-actualization and realization of who we are and what we can do as young people. We need to believe in ourselves.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So the way you're talking, it's very, passionate. I believe that you really think that young people, and you are certain that young people will make a difference in this country.
They will.
But my question to you is the environment conducive for our young people to come together and make a stand and actually have one goal? Or the things that we're seeing right now, where there's individualism, each man for himself, or is the survival of the fittest concept? Isn't it that's making young people not to feel like they can stand a chance in pursuing or achieving their goals in Zimbabwe?
I must say that the environment is not actually conducive. We grew up in a country where our politics and our society, the culture of our politics and society, is not being including young people. A lot of things has been happening when you talk of land reform programs and how it is being affected. Even when you bring about policies that are in relation to land reform, I do not care because I don't have a farm. All young people, almost all, we don't have that. When you talk of banks and rates which are transfer rates, recipient rates, I don't mind. I don't have a bank account. And if one does, honestly, there is no money in that account. So the culture of our environment and the culture of our communities and system has been that young people have been segregated out of the system. So honestly, the environment so far has not been in accordance to what we young people want. It's not been the environment which is conducive for youth-led development. Yes, but it is high time that we push for it ourselves. Individualism has been central to Zimbabwe's kind of life. It has been central. But we cannot afford to be casual about that anymore. And there are people like yourself who are engaging in youth and make sure that we come together, we tell our stories the way we tell it. And there are many young people out there in Zimbabwe who are doing good things, who are doing a lot of things, who are sacrificing a lot of things to make sure that other young people get something to eat, to make sure that the country, Zimbabwe, goes into a higher orbit of economic development and social cohesion. But now, what needs people to come together, Lungi, is not an environment. Young people cannot wait so that they be included. We need to include ourselves. Okay? We cannot wait anymore to then say, wait for the time when we'll be called to come at the dinner table so that we can dine with those who are already there. No. And I'm very sure that young people have been at the dinner table of Zimbabwe's development, but not as diners, no, but as waiters. So the time has come that we invite ourselves to that dinner table, not as waiters, no, but as part of the diners. But it is very critical that you yourselves, such media platforms as this, they play a role in telling what other young people are doing in Zimbabwe. Because the people actually who are supposed to bring about this transformational environment to make it very good and conducive for development, they have not been doing that. The people who have the energy and the resources to foster development, they have not been doing that. And as young people, we have been suffering. So it's high time, regardless of the environment, regardless of the policies, we need to unite, to come together and realize that it is us who are suffering. It is our brothers and sisters who are sleeping in the streets. It is our brothers and sisters who are not going to school. So we need to come together. We create that environment that we want. We are the change ourselves. So we need to come together. We create that environment ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I believe in unity, we can achieve a lot. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, we need to come together. Attacking the problem from various fronts and various avenues, media, charitable organization, philanthropy, development, and education. And I believe that when we do that, when we unite, surely young people will participate and will create our own environment that is conducive for development.
All right, that's awesome. And so let's talk about the projects that KAHT does. What are the projects that you do that enhance capacity building and development?
Okay, like I have said that we are very aggressive on education, and I've said when we began this interview that we have a clear focus on development, and it is often a majority thinking that Africa or Zimbabwe is rich because it has resources. But as an organization, we submit to you and we hold the view that it is not in resources that a nation is rich and is wealthy, but it is in the mindset of young people. The wealth of a nation is not in resources, no. It's not in gold, it's not in platinum. Because if it was so, then Africa should be rich. Africa should be great. But the wealth of a nation is in the mindset of its people. That is what we believe. So we have been aggressive on the front of education to make sure that we skill up our nation in Zimbabwe so that we don't leave any youth behind. We take everyone, every young child, every young girl to make sure that they come together. They are properly educated so that they become assets of tomorrow, not liabilities of the future that we want. So we have rolled out a program that involves scholarship. In this program, we are offering 100% scholarships to young people, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of creed and faith. If you are vulnerable, you are not able to go to school. We have enrolled a program that will take you, a program that will see you through your primary and secondary education to school, free. That is number one. We have been very aggressive on that issue, and we will not stop. We need to see a Zimbabwe that is educated, a young people that are educated. We need to see them to make sure that everyone, when the time for development comes, when the time for industry, I want to tell you one thing, that Zimbabwe is going to develop. And when that time comes, we need young people who are educated, who are going to work in those industries, young people which we are going to mainstream towards agriculture. So we are very aggressive on that, and we are offering scholarships to make sure that no one is left behind in this development we are trying to foster. That is number one. Number two, we have been offering food hampers. Most of our children that we have engaged on this scholarship program are orphans, and the other ones are neglected children. So we have been offering food to them. We have been offering food and hampers to them to make sure that they integrate well with others at school, they integrate well with others in society. And we have made some other children who are wandering in the streets and begging for money. We have been there to make sure that the food they want, the clothes they want, we provide. So that is number two. Then inclusion. We have noted that there is a sense in which we have segregated, in which we have disintegrated a certain part of our community outside. If you look at the disabled people, We have left them out. They have now become a group of people that are associated with beggars, that are associated with begging, that are associated with asking for things. Okay, but we believe as an organization that number one, a person who cannot talk or can hear can use his or her hands to do something. A person who cannot see can use his mouth, his hands, or some to do something. Therefore, we are enrolling a program now where we say those who cannot speak or talk, we can take them to vocational training centers where they can engage in some projects, in some education, such as sewing, such as to become tailors. You can, even some in building, they can build, so that they do not become a group that is associated with begging, so that they do not become a group that is very prone and vulnerable to abuse. So we have been enrolling that program to make sure that the disabled who have been segregated and disintegrated from society are reintegrated back, to make sure that they become part of our society and they are going to contribute to the development of our nation as a group. That is number two. Number three, like I said, we have encountered young houses that are or that are led by children, orphans that do not have anywhere to sleep. And our plans are at a later stage right now to make sure that we are looking into the sustainability and feasibility of the issue of opening an orphanage. The thing is, we have been 1 year into existence right now, and we have been able to provide 5 scholarships, 100% scholarships to young children. And we are right now looking into the issue of opening an orphanage. Probably by August it will be open, and it's going to take a maximum of 20 people for a start. That is the other project, the bigger project that we're right now working on. So amongst our programs of reviving hope, offering resources, advocacy, and fostering youth empowerment, those are some of the things we have achieved so far as an organization.
Okay, that's very impressive. And I'll take you back to you talking about education.
Yes.
And I like the fact that you actually offer 100% scholarships to young people who cannot afford to go to school. But there's this sentiment nowadays where young people think that entrepreneurship is the way to go. And on the other hand, you are fostering or pursuing education as the way to go, so that in future, when Zimbabwe is now stable, so to speak,
Yes.
those young people who would have been educated can go into the separate fields and have jobs in those fields. So what do you say about those people who have the sentiment that entrepreneurship, as we speak right now, is the way to go? Because most young people at the moment, they're unemployed, and that is what they're venturing into.
Yeah, entrepreneurship is very important and is key to the development of Zimbabwe and to the development of Africa as a continent. But what we have to bear in mind is that development does not have one road. Okay, there are various ways in which we have to confront this problem of underdevelopment and poverty. Number one, the root is entrepreneurship. 2 is industrialization and creating an agro-based economy in farming. Number 3 is education. If you are an entrepreneur and you open your company, let me say a major company, if the people, the masses, are not educated, then who's going to run that company? Who's going to market your company? And who's going to be the presenters if they do not have any journalism expertise in them? So we are recognizing that entrepreneurship is key. And it is. We encourage young people to engage in entrepreneurship, to come up with innovative and inventive ideas, to make sure that we foster our nation into a higher orbit of economic development and social cohesion. And we recognize that as key. But we are saying that in this Zimbabwe that we want, we cannot have a one route that we are going to develop it. I know that this sentiment of entrepreneurship, most have adopted it from foreign nations that are now engaging in entrepreneurship because they are developed. But when we are talking now, we are a developing nation, not a developed nation. Let me give you an example that I've seen. There was someone, let me say an Eskimo, and an African person who was in Africa. So an Eskimo, when he looked around himself, they both wanted shelter. When an Eskimo looked around himself, he saw snow, and he broke it into snow blocks and built an igloo and sheltered himself. When an African looked around himself, he saw clay, he saw grass, and he saw trees. What he did is he created a hut and sheltered himself. Such is what is happening now. This one is in a different environment to this one. So both want shelter, we both want development, but the environment is different. So we need to look around ourselves and pinpoint what works for us so that we create it. But the problem with Zimbabwe and us as young people is we have been looking at an Eskimo building an igloo, and we say, they are building an igloo, so we need an igloo in Zimbabwe. Look at them, they've built this igloo and this igloo, so we need it in Zimbabwe. And that is wrong to say. It is high time now we look around ourselves and be innovative to then say we need to pinpoint, we need to scan our problems as Zimbabweans. We need to identify Zimbabwean problems, then come up or cultivate Zimbabwean solutions that are going to address Zimbabwean problems. So number one, entrepreneurship is key. Don't get me wrong, it is good. But we need now to look at what is going on in Zimbabwe. What are the problems that we are facing right now? Poverty, number one. We are a hungry nation, to be honest. We are living under the poverty bottom line. That is key. So we need to look around ourselves and see that we are not a nation that is able to feed itself. We need to look around ourselves. We have land and we are not using it. We need to look around ourselves. We have minerals, but we are not mining them. We are not processing them. Okay, that is key. So when we have looked around ourselves now, around our environment and see those problems, we need now to cultivate solutions that best address those problems. Not to take templates from other civilized developed countries and try to put them in Zimbabwe. Because this one-size-fits-all approach does not fit at all in Zimbabwe. It doesn't. So we need to look at its poverty. So we need to engage in farming to make sure that we utilize our land and our resources to feed our people. That is number one. People are fed. We need to educate our young people. What is mining? What is this? So that they know that we need, if we are engaging in farming, they know how to farm. If we are engaging in mining, they know how to mine. Okay. After we have done that now, we start to talk of entrepreneurship as a tertiary stage to development. We start off opening tertiary businesses. Okay, so entrepreneurship is key, but I'm not saying we should neglect it. No, let it run as an avenue to development. But let us also focus on the key issues, the fundamentals that is going to foster development in Zimbabwe, and education is going to be key in that area. Thank you.
All right, you're saying a lot of stuff about education.
Yes.
So would you regard that as what makes your organization different from other youth-led organizations?
Education.
Yes.
So how do you mean by different?
In terms of one of your key objectives is sponsoring young people who don't have access to education, providing them with full scholarships. So what I'm saying is that would you regard that as what makes your organization different from other organizations, other youth-led organizations?
Yeah, I would say so. Taking into consideration that an organization is built upon values, a mission, and vision. We have our values as integrity, honesty, and our main mission as an organization is to offer resources to those that do not have the resources. Is to offer a helping hand to those that need it. That is number one. Is to revive hope to the hopeless, to those that have lost hope. That is our mission. Those who have given up on life, we are here to revive hope, to say we are in this together and we need to bring about ourselves out of the situation. That is number two. Advocacy. That is number three. So every organization now is rooted in certain areas of missions, visions, and values. But to answer your question of being different from other organizations, I'm sorry, I'm not a believer of that. I believe in this work of philanthropy, in this work of charity, and in this work of helping. We cannot afford that kind of operation that has been in the past to then say we are different from these ones. I've often been asked that question when we are looking for funding. They say, what differentiates you from others? How are you better from this? We cannot afford that luxury anymore. Things are not well in Zimbabwe. The levels of toxicity in our country are not well. So we are not different from other organizations. We do what others do, but we do it passionately, and we do it wholeheartedly. That is what we do. There are a lot of organizations that focuses on education. There are a lot of organizations that are focusing on giving out. They do that. And I'm saying that achievement of purpose is key to us. That let them, we are equal, it's fine. We are not different anyway, anyhow, with other organizations. We are KAHT, and we do what we do, as others do it, but we do it differently. We do it wholeheartedly and passionately. That is what we do. So in then saying we differentiate ourselves from other organizations, no, we don't.
All right. Okay, and in closing, would you have any last words that you'd like to say to young people who would like to be part of your organization, if there is any room for them to be?
Of course, there is room. What I would say is, as an organization, we started in Kano, and we have established right now. And probably in June, we are going to also officially open another branch in Kwero. And I would like to say this idea, Kuziva Amai Huudzwa Trust, is not an organization in itself, but it is an idea. It is an ideology of young people empowering themselves. It is an ideology of young people standing out. Therefore, it does not belong to anyone. I might be the current chairperson of Kuziva Amai Huudzwa Trust, but I do not own it. The co-founders of Kuziva Amai Huudzwa Trust do not own it. It is an organization. It is an idea that belongs to the people. So everyone is open. The organization is open, and everyone is welcome to come into our organization and work with us to foster this development that we want. And only the closing words that I will give, I'll reiterate that Zimbabwe, I will say to young people that Zimbabwe is going to be built on the backs of young people. And that must sink in the minds of young people. Yes, the young people that are properly educated, the young people that are innovative and inventive. We need a Zimbabwe with young minds that are innovative and inventive. And to finish, we are the suckers that are going to grow when the old banana tree dies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tafara, for coming to KAHT 0292.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching KAHT 0292. From me, Lungile, it's bye for now. Make sure to follow us on our Facebook page, Center for Innovation and Technology, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Center for Innovation and Technology, and follow us on Twitter @CIZW. See you next week.